this video, we're going to work with drawing shapes. We're going to utilize the tools that are included inside of the FTCU software to create things like a rectangle, square, ellipse, circle, triangle, pentagon, hexagon, and just show what we can do with those and how we can utilize them. So these are located in kind of the upper center part of the screen, the icon that when you hover over it right now, it says rectangle because that's kind of the active tool. If you have the floating toolbar available right here and you have nothing selected, you'll see the icon shows up right here as well. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you'll notice that our options are all right here: rectangle, ellipse, triangle, pentagon, hexagon, and custom shapes, and we'll focus on those as well. So let's just go ahead and grab the rectangle tool. And the rectangle tool is very simple to use. You just click and drag. You have to left mouse click and drag to create a shape. And you can see that this is creating a rectangle. It's not creating a perfect square. So when I release the mouse click, it's going to create the shape. Now, if I want to create a square, you'll notice that there is no square tool, just the rectangle. So I do need to use the rectangle tool, but instead of just left clicking and dragging, I'm going to left click and hold, and at the same time press and hold Control on my keyboard. And when I release the mouse, watch what happens. It creates a perfect square. You can see 37.9 by 37.9. So anytime you want to create a perfect shape, you must hold down Control on your keyboard. The other tools work exactly the same. So if I grab the ellipse, I click and drag, I can create an oval shape. If I click and drag and instead I hold down Control as I do it, when I release the mouse, it's going to create a perfect circle, 34.4 by 34.4. And this is in millimeters. So you can see that that's how each of these work. Triangle, same way. You can create it in any kind of shape. If I come back in and I hold down Control, it's going to just do a more uniform shaped triangle. And you can see it's perfectly the same size, 40.1 in height by 40.1 in width. And this works the same for all of these. You have the pentagon, you have a hexagon. If I come up here and I click and I go to the hexagon and drag, you see it's exactly the same. So this is how you create the shapes. And the other thing to point out is that this is all artwork. Okay, so if you look over here on the sequence view, you'll see that everything shows up as artwork and nothing is filled in with color. Now I could select one and I could fill it with color and hit apply, and it's just artwork. If I select one and I want to change the width of the line, I can do that. I do this quite often, actually. I'll change the width of a line, an artwork line, and I will use that to digitize over the top of so that I get a nice, good, uniform line. Just one of the things that I do quite frequently. And that's basically what you have for what you can do to artwork. And you've learned that in previous lessons. And you've also learned that there's different things that you can do to edit artwork. And either by clicking and dragging the lines, selecting the nodes, right-clicking, your different options. If you want more information on that, make sure you watch the previous section where it talks about creating lines and especially the editing. And so there's a lot of different things you can do with the artwork. It's a great way to get started on creating a shape, because once you have the artwork, you can change it to anything you want down here at the bottom. I can change it to a run stitch. I could change it to a steel stitch. I can come in and do a fill. I could do a motif fill. You can do pretty much anything. you want and converting it to it. Some stipple, you can just really kind of just play around with it. That's what's great about artwork. So it is good to use custom shapes. They help make it easier to create things like a circle, square, rectangle, and it's easy to convert them. Now, one thing that I want to point out here too is that there are some options that you can do in the preferences, program preferences. And I just want to show that to you really quick. I'm going to click on the program preferences. And inside of here, you have things like your environment and stuff. This view, you have digitizing. These different options are available. Now you'll see that I have this checkbox right here, automatically select created paths. Now what that means is whenever I create anything, it's going to automatically select it right after I create it. So let me bring up a new design page, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to just create a rectangle, and notice that once I release it, it selects it and makes it active. If I go back to the program preferences in the environment and I uncheck this automatically select these paths, if I know I'm going to create a bunch of lines, outlines, or even in the digitizing, if I know that I'm going to create a bunch in a row, I want that checked off, because watch what happens. If I go back into any of these tools and I select it, and if I left click and drag when I release it, notice that it doesn't automatically select it. Now I can just go in and create as many as I want, and it'll just keep that tool active. And when I'm done, I can just hit the selection tool and I'm out of that tool. And so that is a great way if you know that you're going to be creating a bunch of the same shape. That's something that you can do, because it is kind of annoying to have to go back and click it each time. It's not hard to access it. Typically, I am working in this environment right here where I don't have it auto-selected at the end. So some of the other things that we can do is we can utilize things like the grid, guidelines, and things like that. And so let's go ahead and take a look at how that works with creating custom shapes, or, using the custom shapes and artwork tools. So I'm going to turn the grid on. And right now, I don't have snap to grid on, so I can create this anywhere. You can see that it's not on the lines exactly. If I come up to the ruler right here and I right mouse click and I turn on the snap to grid, now with a tool active, it's going to snap. You can see as I get close, it snaps down, and it will create kind of a perfect shape, like that's a perfect square, or, rectangle is very even. It's a great way to utilize the tools and to be able to create things that are all in the same size. So it's a very easy thing to do. The other thing that you can do is, you notice this one, I don't have it at an exact size. With the snap to grid on, if I want to make this one, I can go into the edit of it, and as I get close to the edge, notice that it throws it into that corner. And then we go ahead and do undo here. I'm going to bring it back. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you turn the snap to grid on, you can easily convert something. But there is another option here. If I right mouse click and I go to snap to move, this is like a tool that is really neat to utilize when you're working with perfect shapes, or even you just want to move something, get everything to line up well. If I go snap to move, now what will happen is this is going to, you can see it kind of snaps to that point. And the thing to keep in mind, this is not a perfect rectangle, so you can see that there's a little bit of gap between here. So sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to get things to line up. Like, for example, if I can get this one to snap to this side, when I want to snap it to this grid line, you'll notice that I'll have a difficult time to do that. See, it wants to snap right here because it's actually trying to snap to that line as opposed to this line. So what you have to do is just a little trick I've noticed is just, I need to click it and drag it a little bit and get it to snap to that edge. And now when I go to move it, it'll snap right there. So a snap to move is also a pretty handy tool to use at times. It's something I don't have turned on unless I'm really wanting to move it into position. And this is just a good thing to know how to do with these artwork shapes. I'm going to turn the snap to grid off as well now. So the other things that we have in working with kind of artwork and these shapes are the custom shapes. So I'm going to select these and I'm just going to delete them really quick. And I'm going to come back up to here and click on this artwork shape tool. And I'm going to click custom shapes. Now, this is something that is available from the floating toolbar, but you'll notice up here, it's just a word says custom shape. Now there's also up here, this is custom shapes as well. So there's a few different ways to access it. And custom shapes are great. If I come over here, click this icon, and I'm going into the custom shapes, it's going to load the custom shapes. The first thing that you want to take a look at is there's a folder with a drop down here. If I click the drop down, you'll see that there's also easy art. So let's look at these custom shapes first. These are just like silhouettes. These are just simple one color, one objects. There's not multiple pieces. It's just one solid object. If I come over here to easy art, you'll notice that this is much different. The first thing you're going to see is an alphabet. And it's just a vector artwork that you can easily convert to stitches, or you can convert it to applique. My recording software is kind of making this go a little slow. Sorry about that. But you can see that this alphabet shows up. It's a great basic alphabet that you can create things from. But you'll see these easy art, and there's a lot of different designs in here. And these are multicolor designs, but they're created in a way that makes them easy to convert to embroidery. That's why it's called easy art. So the art was created in a way to be converted to stitches easily. So if I come into this one, I've used this one a number of times in different examples. All you have to do is select one. Just click on it and it's going to load it into the software. So that's the same thing for with these custom shapes. Regardless if you're in easy art or you're in custom shapes, when you left click on something, it's going to load it in. And it loads in as artwork because that's what it is. So if I come over here and I drop down in the sequence view, any of these colors, you can see it's all artwork. So it's ready to go. You can edit it just like any other artwork. And these do convert well. I use these custom shapes quite a bit. And I like to use them in samples or examples for teaching because everybody has these on their computer. So I don't have to like give them a file and have them open up a file, like get it downloaded, know where it is on their computer. So for any of you educators out there, I highly recommend using these because it's an easy way to get everyone to find and select artwork to work with. So that's why I like to do it. And I find that the more I get into it, the more I find something that I can use. Now, there is, in advanced lessons, you have the ability to create your own and save them into this custom shapes. So you can create them, you can export and import them. Just so you know, that is an option, and there'll be videos on how to do that. So working with them, it's the same as everything else you can do with the regular custom shapes or just the shapes. You can move them around. Now, what I want to do is I'm not going to spend any more time on that. You can just watch this video a few times, but the custom shapes are really easy to access, and you can go through and see what all they are. So the next thing I want to do is I'm coming back to this one right here because I do want to show another tool that's recently been added to the Floriani software. It was in the Craft and Cut software, and now it's in the Floriani, and that is the Smart Fill tool. And the Smart Fill tool is one that works with artwork. So that's why I'm including it in this video, is because when I use it, I will create artwork, and sometimes it'll be shapes, artwork shapes, using these tools, and then I'll come in and use it to create something, a different shape. So the Smart Fill tool, how it works is if I select it, you'll notice that the icon changes, and you don't see much of anything else. I'm not going to be clicking and drawing something. How this one works is you just left click in an area here. And notice that when I do, it's going to find the outlines of the objects around it, and it's just going to fill in that area. So it's kind of a neat feature. If I go to undo, I could click right inside of here, and it's just going to create that rectangle. I can click in there, click in there. So why is this neat? Well, there's a lot of times that you need to create a shape that's kind of more difficult to do with drawing it, that if you can use a few custom shapes or just basic shapes from the software, it can make it a little easier. So let's go ahead, and right now what I'll do is I'm going to snap to grid just because, and I'm going to grab the ellipse tool here. I'm going to start in this corner, end it down here. And then what I'm going to do is go into the middle of it and do the same thing. So I'm creating two perfect circles. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want a shape that's like this. This is like kind of a difficult shape at times to create yourself, to get it to be balanced on both sides, to be very uniform. And so by creating this, I can come up now to the Smart Fill and click inside of there, and I've just created that shape. And it's a perfect shape. So hopefully you can kind of see where I'm getting with this and why this kind of a tool is beneficial. So let's now take, and I'm going to come from here. I'm just going to create another circle that I'm trying to get the same size. I will move it. You'll see this a lot with like kind of artwork programs and stuff. So you can see that this is about 2 in from this side, and it's 2 squares in from that side, and it's right in the middle. So what you can do, like this kind of a shape right here, is something that can be utilized as well for different things. And you'll notice, you see that right there, where it actually didn't find all of them. That is something that will happen from time to time, and I haven't figured out exactly what and why that happens. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to delete that object. And now let's just see if anything changes here. It's something where I'm not sure why, but it does happen. So I'm just going to rearrange some objects here and just see if I can get it. You can see that time it goes to the other side. So now let's take these two and move them below this one. And I'm just doing this on the fly just to see if it'll change anything. So no, it doesn't. So I'm working with 3 different shapes here. That could be part of the reason is because there's 3 overlapping. Because if I click into this one right here, you can see there's only 2 objects. And this one's only 2 because this one right here doesn't go over the top of it as well. So you can see that it works just fine. So that's got to be the part that it struggles with, is the 3 that overlap at a time. Because you can see I can create that. But you can see here, I can create some really good shapes here. And ones that are difficult to create by themselves. And that's what the point of the Smart Fill tool is, to work with artwork shapes and use the artwork shapes to create your own shape that is difficult to do by itself. And so hopefully that makes sense a little bit. It's really easy to use. It only works with artwork, so you have to have artwork shapes that overlap each other, because it's only going to focus in the areas that overlap. So that's the different things that you can do. One thing I didn't show is how to use guidelines. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to turn off the snap to grid, and I'll turn on snap to guidelines. And now I can turn off the grid if I want. And the snap to guidelines is something we've addressed before. And I'm just going to create this shape. Like if I know that I want a rectangle this shape, the easiest way to do it is to use the guidelines to create the shape I want. And you can have artwork in the background that helps you as a guide to get there, or an image or something. But once I select this tool and I click and drag, it's going to, you can see it'll snap to the edges. So now I've just created a perfect shape. I could come in here now and do an ellipse, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to snap to those edges. So it's the same thing, or very similar to snap to grid. However, with the snap to guidelines, you control exactly where those lines are. And so sometimes that can be difficult with snap to grid. Sometimes they're not in the perfect shape so that you need. So it's easy just to use the snap to guidelines to create the shapes as well. So I hope this video was helpful. Those are the different ways that you can work with the artwork shapes that come with the software. So using the shapes tool here, you can go into the custom shapes either by right here or this icon right here, or even down here, this one right here. So there's different ways to access them. Play around with it. There's a lot of different tips inside of this video for how to get the shape you want. So I hope that this was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video.